Costa is brought to you by FQM Trident Limited, a subsidiary of First Quantum Minerals Limited.
Significant development for heavily indebted nations, Zambia has successfully negotiated a debt restructuring agreement encompassing a total debt of $6.3 billion owed to foreign governments, including China. This breakthrough comes after extensive negotiations between Zambia and its creditors, making a positive milestone for other countries grappling with similar challenges. China, a prominent creditor to Zambia, holds the largest portion of this debt, with $4.1 billion owed solely to the Export-Import Bank of China. This highlights the crucial role played by Beijing in supporting the restructuring of this deal. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020, Zambia became the first African nation to default on its sovereign debt. Since then, the country has faced prolonged discussions on reaching an agreement. However, the recent summit held in Paris yielded a favorable outcome, paving a way for a comprehensive resolution. Under the terms of this agreement, Zambia's debt will be rescheduled over a period of more than 20 years with a 3-year moratorium. During this initial grace period, only interest payments will be due, providing some breathing space for the country's financial recovery. Obviously, in the last 72 hours, congratulations and kudos have gone to President Hakainde Hichilema and the New Dawn government. On tonight's edition of Costa, we analyze the implication of this deal for the country and what it means. My guest is Dr. Caleb Fundanga, former Central Bank Governor of Zambia. This evening has extensive experience in the economic and financial sector. He was governor of the Bank of Zambia from 2002 up until 2011. This was after serving as senior advisor to the president of the African Development Bank in Abidjan, Ivory Coast from 1998. He further served as the executive director at the African Development Bank before being appointed as senior advisor. He also served for 6 years at cabinet office before finally winding up in the office of the president as permanent secretary in charge of National Commission for Development Planning. Now, since July of 2014, he has also been executive director of the Macroeconomic and Financial Management Institute for Eastern and Southern Africa. He began his economics career as an academic at the University of Zambia soon after completing his PhD at Costa University in 1985. He also serves as board chairperson of the Zambia Revenue Authority, as well as sits on the board of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. My guest this evening, Dr. Caleb Fundanga. Good evening.
Good evening, Costa.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's get, straight into this. I mean, for the last 72 hours, Zambia has been really the talk on the international financial and economic, platforms. Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF president, being the first in line to congratulate, President Hichilema, President Emmanuel Macron. Why has there been so much, talk about this debt deal that Zambia has reached, and why all this excitement on the international market?
Well, the excitement is there, obviously, and it's well deserved. You recall that after the HIPC debt relief, everybody thought now we were off the hook and we can continue doing what was right. But unfortunately, Zambia, as well as other African countries, and not only African, but even other parts of the world, have again fallen into indebtedness, and there was no mechanism for resolving this. So everybody was hoping that something would emerge. And Zambia, as you rightly pointed out at the introduction, was the first country to default during the COVID era. We did this, we failed to pay in 2020. And so we've been trying to find a solution. The previous government started, but it was not successful. So in 2021, when we had a new government with new policies, with a lot of energy for addressing Zambia's development challenges, we all thought now this is something will come. And I think they've done a very good job. As you know, the fund gave us a facility, extended credit facility of 1.3 billion or so. And that money was meant to assist us during the restructuring process. Unfortunately, the progress has been a little bit slow because under the new G20 framework for addressing indebtedness, it's not like the old arrangements where you had the Paris Club to deal with the bilaterals and then the London Club. Under the new framework, all the countries, the credit institutions and countries are brought together, and then you agree on how you're going to proceed. And then once you sign an MOU, you start now negotiating individually and so forth. Obviously, there are different interest groups. Some countries have given us long-term credit facilities with favorable terms. Others have not, and so forth. Like if you can compare the holders of Eurobonds, those are, we can say medium term, 10 years, tenors and so forth. And then you look at some of the creditor countries like resources from China. Some of these are long term, payable maybe over 30 years with generous repayment terms and so forth. So when you bring them together, each one has got different interests. So it required a little bit of discussions, negotiations and so forth before you can reach a common ground.
Of course, the devil, they say, is in the detail, and we're yet to get the framework, the finer details or the print of this, MOU. But before we discuss the G20 framework and break down a few things, the question is, Dr. Fundanga, we're not yet out of the woods. This is not a debt write-off. No. It's just a restructuring. So we still are owing. So why should we be celebrating?
Well, I think we should be celebrating, rightly so, because if the creditors have agreed to do a restructuring involves two things. One would be to extend the repayment period. The other part of it could even involve a haircut, reducing the actual amount of money that you owe them. So both things should be taken together. Obviously, to determine what is the sustainable level of indebtedness, the IMF did a debt sustainability analysis of Zambia, like they do for all the other countries. And this is also part of the job that my institution in Zimbabwe was involved in, to do debt sustainability analysis. Now, if a country is highly indebted, obviously, an analysis of how to resolve that problem must inevitably look at what you can do to reduce that burden. And part of that is to maybe cut, at least forgive some of the debt. And also what remains, extend the repayment over a certain period of time. Those are part of the negotiations. So you should never just look at the existing amount and you want to spread it over a longer period of time. But you should also look at the possibility of reducing, cutting off. So when you hear people talking of the haircut, they are talking of what percentage of the debt should be forgiven or, be written off.
Part of the proposals by our government through the Ministry of Finance was asking for a haircut of around somewhere 8.2 to 8.3 billion, dollars. What fillers are you getting in terms of any haircuts, being given apart from this 20-year extended repayment period?
I think if those who have read the IMF debt sustainability analysis of Zambia, which I think is readily available on the IMF website and probably also Ministry of Finance website, they were talking of probably something like 40%. But the caution here is that we don't know until the full details of the discussions are completed, because what we are discussing now was just the outcome of the discussions with the bilaterals. We don't know what will emerge in the discussion with the other lenders, the private lenders, including the holders of the Eurobonds. So until those come out, let us not be presupposing what the final outcome would be. It might be injurious in terms of the negotiations that are going on with others. So let's wait until the full details come out. But our hope, and the hope of everybody in this exercise, is that there will be some element of write-off, and also an element of the extension of the repayment period. As we have seen already from the bilaterals, the extension of the repayment period of beyond 20 years and beyond, with the 3-year moratorium, is a positive thing.
So just to kindly break it down for a lay person, who's wondering why we are so upbeat and are celebrating, what does 20 years mean and the 3-year grace period? Just what will happen then in simplistic terms?
Well, the grace period means that at least during the 3-year period, we only pay an interest. The principal will not be required to be paid back. It means our obligation. This is on bilateral loans? Yes.
For loans like China?
Yes.
And
other bilateral lenders. So it therefore means that in the 3-year period, our repayment will just be restricted to the interest due. Okay? The principal will kick in after 3 years. So it therefore means that our burden for repayment will be considerably reduced. So it means our foreign exchange earnings that will be devoted to debt service will also correspondingly be reduced. Now, obviously, this is a great relief if you consider how much we should have been paying with the principal. And so it gives us a breathing period during which time the little foreign exchange we have can be used for other things. Like I'm sure you've heard of the social sectors, health and education, which badly needs support. And the current government is very committed to ensuring that every Zambian child has got decent access to decent education. That every Zambian who is sick should go to a clinic or a hospital and expect treatment. So it means that we can improve the delivery of social services, but also agriculture. It's very important. I think even the President's statement emphasized on that fact. For us to survive, we've got to feed ourselves first and foremost. Agriculture also is supposed to benefit a lot. But most importantly is that the private sector, the key players in all the other than the social sectors, they also will have access to improved foreign exchange availability.
That's the anticipation. But Doc, correct me if I'm wrong. After the default, I know for a fact that we as a country have not been servicing, these loans. I think in the last 2 or so years.
Yes.
The fact that there's this agreement means now that yes, we begin servicing interest and not the principal amounts. Does this not affect a bit of economic trajectory that we've made in the exchange rate, the GDP aspect? Because I think we're a bit comfortable because we were not paying anything.
Certainly we are not paying anything, but when you are not paying anything and there is no underlying agreement, it does affect perceptions of the business community, your creditworthiness and so forth. So just that aspect that a country is unable to pay even the interest due damages your standing. The credit ratings go down and so forth. So that's why countries must fight hard to avoid default, unless there is an underlying agreement that you are forgiven to pay at the time when you are expected. Now, with the existence of this agreement, at least we are not going to act like a rogue state, which just decides not to pay what's due to the lenders. So that in itself, I think, changes a lot of things. All these positive comments you have heard are an acceptance that Zambia is operating not in a rogue state kind of way, but in an acceptable international framework, which does not deprive those who lent money to it unnecessarily. But it has agreed that, yes, we have obligations. Perhaps we can extend them over a longer period of time while we also reorganize ourselves. I'm emphasizing reorganizing because what Zambia needs now, given the breathing space we have been given, it's to ramp up production of exports.
Does this agreement then do away with certain things that were existing prior? Like, for example, we were meant to make a bullet payment back on the first, Euro bond of $750 million somewhere this year, 2023. Again, another bullet payment in 2030. And we were told at that point then that the central bank was putting in place a sink fund to which I'm sure is not even there. But does it mean then that we are not obligated to pay those bullet?
That will only know, because what we have concluded are just bilaterals. Now they are going to deal with the private sector creditors. I'm sure that will emerge, but we don't know now, and it would be premature to discuss the outcome of that discussion. Let's wait and see what they are going to agree on. I'm sure they will take into account everything else, especially the outcome of the bilaterals. That's the reason why when you enter into these discussions, the first group to deal with will be the bilaterals. And then from there, the others can pick on. Because many of these people, Eurobond holders, are coming from OECD countries. And the bilaterals are the people from the OECD countries. But they open the route for discussions with the other creditors. So let's wait and see. But I'm pretty confident that whatever we emerge from there will also reflect the reality of the outcome of the discussions with the bilaterals.
I want to take your, personal view as an expert of many years, because I've interviewed quite a number of economists, other stakeholders from civil society, and the politicians with a different, lens as regards the IMF's involvement in all this. Others feel it's an IMF, driven, agenda, yoking, Zambia. Others feel this is a homegrown solution being supervised by the IMF. And also debates of anything IMF that has never worked, and perceptions that we're dealing with a reformed, IMF. Where do you see the role of the IMF in all this, and what's their significance in the whole G20 common framework?
The IMF is an important institution, and it was created after the Second World War specifically to help countries meet their liquidity requirements. It's different from the World Bank in this respect, because the World Bank finances the actual development projects, but its main role is to ensure that there is liquidity in the international financial system, and that liquidity, when you get a loan from the IMF, it is to improve the liquidity. But at the same time, they give you advice on what you need to do in order that you can improve it. I'll give you a very good example. When we did the HIPIC completion and we became eligible for the issuance of Euro bonds, those bonds were not being issued under any supervisory framework. We could just go, as you saw, 3 times we went to the market, and then the whole thing was blocked because we were not following certain principles. If we had the IMF at that time, maybe they would have provided advice for us not to go in for the amounts we did. And the time we went into the market for each bond issuance and so forth. So you need that kind of thing. And Zambia is a classic example of what happens when there is no oversight in what we do. So the role of the IMF should not be seen as negative, but as a positive influence to ensure that we don't go astray in what we do. I think that's all they do. But of course, when you are being restrained from spending, even in a household, you think, oh, my dad is a bad guy. He doesn't want me to spend the money. But, money must not be spent anyhow.
So in short, are the IMF here to teach or to monitor our prudent and fiscal discipline?
Well, they are here to help us to understand what is good and what is not good. I'm glad to say that at the moment we've got a government which has got the capacity to judge on its own what is good and what is not.
I was going to ask, we're not competent enough to understand.
Yes, take the Minister of Finance, somebody I've known from school days. I've studied with him and so forth. And this is the second time that he's serving as a Minister of Finance. He's a competent economist and even worked as an IMF advisor to the Central Bank of Swaziland in his history. So he's quite a competent person, and I'm sure that he knows what is right and what is not right. So far, up to the time when the staff mission came here before the spring meetings, they had done all the things that were in their powers to do. The only thing was this G20 framework, which it was not in their power because it required also the agreement of the creditors. Okay, but on their own, they are doing well, in spite of the fact that actually they've spent a lot of money on good causes, but they've not overspent, and this is very important. So the IMF just comes in. It's not just that it wants to give advice. You remember there is the 1.3 billion, which is part of the extended credit facility. They will be releasing it. Right now, we have been struggling to get the $188 million released. If that is released now as a result of what has happened, it will certainly improve the availability of foreign exchange to Zambia. And another tranche may come until we exhaust the whole 1.3. So they are not just here to ensure that there is a policy reform, but they are also providing a facility. And don't forget also that earlier on there was a 1.4 billion SDR, special drawing rights, which was a global increase in the special drawing rights of every country, and that money was given to us. So the IMF should not be seen just as an institution which is restraining you from spending. When it sees that there is need to increase liquidity globally, they can release or increase the SDRs.
This announcement was made on Thursday, last week, Doc, and I think 48 hours before that, we were seeing some shifts in the dollar kwacha, performance. And I think last week it went down to 15 kwacha per USD. I'm not an expert, but with such a huge announcement, one would have expected that again, the kwacha would have strengthened further, but it remained it bounced at 17 and stayed there. Does this signal that then there's no investor confidence in that announcement to trigger market movements? Or am I calling it too soon?
It is probably too soon. We are still in the weekend. I don't know what is going to happen to the market tomorrow. But obviously, business sentiments are very important to determine. Obviously, when something like this has happened, everybody...
I spoke to the banker, they were expecting even a movement.
But they are the ones who move the market. It's not the government. We have had a very good forex market here for a long time. And I must thank everybody, the government, plus the business community, the banks, the industrialists, and so forth, where we have stopped getting very excited about exchange rate movement. In other countries, like the time when the kwacha was hitting 24 to 1, probably you would have seen measures by the government to try and try and fix the rate at a certain... we don't have those, and thank God. Let's just remain like this, because I remember that when I got to Bank of Zambia in 2002, one of our main tasks at that time was to ensure that the market could operate automatically according to the sentiments of the market without policy interventions from the government. And I think we've seen that against all odds. I'm saying against all odds because if you look back into history, there was always some attempt to fix the rate at a certain level and so forth. But since that time, we have operated well, especially using the interbank market, which we didn't have. When we didn't have it, you had more or less two parallel markets, the interbank market and then the BOZ auction. But we said, no, let's just have one market. If the banks can come and buy foreign exchange from each other, and also from the central bank when the central bank has got something, so that the unified market can help us to come with a rate which is truly reflective of what the market requires. And I think we have done it. Now, obviously, within that market structure, the other factors are important. How much are we earning from the mines? How much foreign exchange is coming from the sale of copper and things like that? How many of the loans are coming in, and what do they do to the liquidity in the forex market? All these are important factors which ultimately will decide how much each bank can access in the market. And I think it has worked. But what we saw, when the new government came in 2021, the situation had been very bad, and the kwacha dollar exchange rate was around the 24 something to 1. But because of the positive sentiments arising from a new government with new policies, you saw that the kwacha had appreciated very considerably. But as they wait for a new restructuring deal continued, you saw again the kwacha losing ground. Okay?
The worry for the business community and other players really, Doc, is the fluctuations and the stability. And like I'm saying again, obviously with such a huge announcement, there was anticipation that there would be some firm of the kwacha and the slumping of the dollar. And then now that this has been announced, probably we can be planning for the next 2-3 years at maybe 10 kwacha per US dollar.
No, well, if you can ramp up production for exports, indeed, it's possible. I mean, you saw after we reached HIPIC, the kwacha was very, very strong.
3 kwacha per US dollar.
Some people were even warning me that, it's too strong. Then I said, well, if it's too strong, what you do with the strong kwacha is what determines where you go forward. At that time I was saying, if you think it's too strong, then it means that you can buy equipment very cheaply. If you are a farmer, buy a tractor with a strong kwacha, then you ramp up your production, you increase your productivity and so forth. What is bad is when a local currency gets strong, you want to buy consumption goods, luxuries. And so
just a rider to that point, when you were central bank governor in these years, 2002 to 2011, I think we had a clean slate then because HIPIC had just
done
come
everything,
and things. So why did we fail in those years to do those things of value addition and ramp up production? Up until now, when you look at the 5th, 6th national development, we're now 8th national development plan, we're still singing a song of value addition. And everything looked, all the macro indicators, Doc, you had GDP of even hitting 7%.
Yes, it was good, but that's an indication. That's an indication that when these things improve, you can increase your GDP because that's the only time in recent times when you had a very high GDP growth because we didn't have the pressures. Anybody who wanted to produce could produce. Those who wanted to buy tractors, I remember even me as a small-scale farmers, I managed to buy a 20 horsepower tractor. Of course, I didn't have much time to make the best use of it. But that's what reforms like this do. They make it easier. When the kwacha appreciates like that, it's even much better than increasing people's salaries. So I recall that a lot of people started going to Dubai, to going to Shenzhen, whatever in China, to start importing all sorts of things, building materials. That's the time when you had a boom in construction and the like. So these changes in the variables are important, and for sure the record is there that during that time we had a very high growth in GDP. More jobs were created and so forth. Now the direction an economy will go will also depend on what it is that you are trying to promote. Okay, if there is no policy direction as to where you expect the new money to go, you may find that it's just going to consumption. But if there is, for instance, a correspondingly a policy which says if you can invest into manufacture, especially manufacture for exports, will be given a tax break. That will ensure that probably instead of money going into consumption of luxuries, it is going to go into the more productive
Have
sector.
we seen, even under the new Dawn government, an economic shift trajecting to what you're saying? I mean, again, when you look at our budget, time immemorial we've been complaining that almost 50% of our national budget goes towards, emoluments and civil service, salaries. But worse, where we're coming from under this, $16 billion plus international debt, you found that almost 90% of the entire budget went towards debt servicing and just emoluments. So you can't have less than 10% going towards the social sectors like you're saying. So where do we see the growth, budgeting happening? CDF has been increased, but one would also call that a consumptive expenditure.
I wouldn't call that consumptive. CDF is going into a lot of production, but also production based in the provinces as opposed to production based in Lusaka. Desks now are being produced locally, and under the CDF, what can I say, directives or whatever provisions, if you are trying to make some desks for Mongo, the people producing them must be from Mongo, not from Lusaka. We used to import desks in this country. Okay? Now, if you can make them here, that is productive activity. You are using local wood and so forth instead of importing finished desks from somewhere else. These are policies which probably were not there before and which are there and creating jobs in remote parts of the country. If I go to Chiluvi Island, I will find somebody making desks there. If I go to Kaputa, I will find the same. If I go to Kanagantapa, there are people that are trying to make desks for their schools. This is obviously a change. It's a positive change.
But it still doesn't answer your concern over the fact that we are not exporting. We are still largely a net importer, and we're still swimming. When I look at the latest figures from the ZAMStats, we're still in a trade deficit, in a trade imbalance. Even our copper production now, from where we're hitting 800,000 metric tons, we are down to around 300,000 tons, per year. Obviously, what is happening?
Yeah, copper has been a disaster, mainly because of, again, I don't want to be engaged in this business of saying the previous government all the time, but you know very well that KCM and Mopani, the two largest mines for a long time, were interfered with politically. Okay? I don't even know why it became necessary for us to nationalize Mopani, which was one of the big mining companies being run by Glencore and so forth. KCM, again, was it necessary to do what we did? Obviously, two of the largest mines have not been operating properly, and that obviously contributes. These are the political issues we talk about, that sometimes politics must keep out of business. If those two large mines had continued to operate without any interference, I'm sure our exports would have been higher. But I don't want to look at exports in terms of copper. We've had too much of copper all the time.
But we've been talking diversification, and we don't see any growth in the NTs.
Going forward, I don't know if you have heard some of the statements I've made about agriculture. I've been saying that the fact that a lot of our countries, neighboring countries, don't produce enough food is a blessing for us. We should go all out and start producing more maize. If the people in DR Congo want Zambian maize, we should not see those who are engaged in exporting to DR Congo as smugglers. They are just people taking advantage of the business opportunities being presented in a neighboring country. In Zambia, we've been self-sufficient in maize production for quite some time. Now, what we should be doing is go and invest in along the borders with DR Congo, along the borders with Malawi, along the borders with Angola, where they need the food. And Zambia is capable of producing all these things. So exports should not be seen only in terms of...
But we've known all that. I mean, since you were central bank governor in the 2000s, what stops us from doing that?
I don't know. I'm not... I've been saying this, that even when I was at the central bank, we organized a major agricultural conference here. Against all odds, people were saying this is wrong and so forth. They said, look, if you don't have food, you are going to come to the central bank to ask for foreign exchange to import food. I would rather promote agriculture than promote imports of food, which we can produce. We are well blessed with good natural resources here, land and water and so forth. So what we need now is a strategy focused on agricultural production and also value addition.
How do you see agriculture production growing or booming when part of the IMF's treatment or recommendations are that we should no longer subsidize in terms of agriculture? Some of the proposed measures in the energy or electricity sector, for example, increment of tariffs, put again a cost on production and the cost of doing business.
Yes, the problem about subsidies is that they encourage waste. When you provide cheap fertilizer, cheap seed, you are not solving a problem. You are just transferring the problem to the producer of fertilizer or the importer of fertilizer or the producer of electricity. ZESCO should be able to deliver electricity at a reasonable cost to the Zambian consumer, because this electricity is coming from Zambian water. We are one of the few countries which has got sufficient water to provide for hydropower. But we also know that there are times when we have a drought here. So we need to invest more into alternative energy, such as solar, to supplement the times when there won't be enough water in Kariba. You saw what happened recently, and so forth. So we can produce these things, but we should produce them efficiently. I wouldn't like to have maize at all cost, because somebody has to subsidize. When the IMF tells you don't subsidize inputs, are they wrong or right? They are right. What you should encourage is efficient utilization of inputs. We have had cases here when they've delivered fertilizer to the peasant farmers, and those peasant farmers have sold the fertilizer to somebody else. We have had cases where the people who are recipients of subsidized fertilizer over-apply it because they don't even know how much fertilizer is.
So then what is the best model? You've been around for a very long time to see the different systems. Yes. Has this FISP been a disaster? We started with, I think, 200,000 to 400,000 recipients. We are now sitting at about 1 million. Has productivity grown? And I ask this question because, first of all, the inputs from fertilizer are subsidized. Then yet again, when FRA buys subsidized inputs, subsidize the millers.
Yeah, it's all wrong.
And then the cost of milling does not reflect.
Those are the policy issues I always refer to. Certainly, you don't need to do that. If you didn't subsidize fertilizer, but you emphasized on improved extension services, so that people know that if they apply fertilizer properly, the yields will increase. Even though we have been subsidizing fertilizer, the yields in Zambia are very low compared to countries like, even in the neighborhood like Zimbabwe. Last time I was saying that in Zimbabwe, it's quite common to get a yield of 10 tons of maize per hectare with the proper application of inputs. Here, you are talking of 4 or 3 and even lower for some of these people who are recipients of subsidized fertilizer. So it's the technical application of anything matters a lot. I think that in this year's budget, the Minister of Finance tried to address that issue when he said instead of just giving this fertilizer. I would rather spend a little bit of the money that is going on FISIP to extension work, so that we can have extension workers visiting the farmers, showing them how much fertilizer is necessary to get the best results. It's not how much you apply, but the right application that we yield. Also, if you are saying the government currently is addressing that issue, we hope that we can see some changes, but that is the right approach. See how you can help the people you are giving help to, so that you get the best results. And if we can do this in a lot of other cases, like even growing of vegetables, tomatoes. If you have seen some of the demonstrations of them, I was at Agritech area recently, and if you saw the right application of inputs into tomato production, I couldn't even believe that you can get tomato growing like that. That's the right agriculture, not the wrong agriculture where you're just throwing in pesticides, and sometimes you are even making the output dangerous to the lives of consumers.
This restructuring agreement can best be described a deja vu moment like one we had in 2000. It's a restart button. We still are owing, but gives us an opportunity as a country, political party aside, for 20 years to rebuild ourselves.
Yeah.
So what should this country, I mean, you've already touched on boosting production. What should be our next game changer in the next 20 years? What are the pillars you'd be advising whoever will be in government and running the economy for the next 20 years?
Well, we should ramp up agricultural production, not only of maize, cotton, for instance. We can produce very good cotton here, and we've been producing. And now, what happens when we grow the cotton? Don't export it. Transform it into fabrics. We had Kafua textiles, which used to do very well. Now I notice that even political parties, when they want to import their chitenges, when they want their chitenges, they have to import it from China. Should that be happening when we had our own facility here? We had also had in Kabwe, Mlungushe textiles. All those were supposed to be linkages. These were Kaunda's projects. It was linking agriculture to value addition. That's the way to go. So whatever you produce, if you are growing sunflower, you are growing soya beans, don't export soya beans just in a raw form. And I know there's a lot of that happening. Transform it into cooking oil and other things which have got a higher value, and you create more jobs. Apart from producing the soya bean, you're also producing jobs in the production process. That's the way to go. And you can identify many agricultural products. We have got hardwoods here, which are just, you find they are packing them into containers and exporting to wherever they are exporting, whether it's China or whatever. Why not have the production of the final goods that the consumers want from the hardwoods here in Zambia? You create jobs on two sides. The production of the hardwood and the production of the furniture and other things that go with that. That's how countries have developed. Not just at night you're cutting the trees, packing them into, and even getting some people to be escorting the containers. You can't develop like that. It's out.
Technology has become a futuristic game changer. People are now talking AI and robotics. But again, we sit in a position where, apart from the DRC, we are probably the only country in the world with resources such as lithium, nickel, and cobalt that are geared for a green future, or a green economy as they call it.
Yeah.
We've disastrously failed in getting revenue or proper taxes from copper. How should we handle this issue of lithium and this future game changer?
The most important thing is get the industry organized. Even the copper you're talking about, it's only the big companies that are organized. There are people just taking our copper and so forth. Just regulate industries properly so that those who want to produce are known and they can pay the taxes. I'm particularly concerned with taxes myself because as a Revenue Authority board member, I need to collect more taxes in order that we can fund our own development. The CDF money we need should not come from a World Bank or IMF loan, but should come from the taxes we've collected locally. These donor countries, cooperating partners or donor countries, whatever the term might be, the money they give us comes from their own taxpayers. So we should be proud to pay tax. I don't want people to be paying tax with the anger. They see the taxman as somebody who has come to deprive them of whatever. But to be happy that at least if I can pay some tax, tomorrow I can have a well-supplied hospital because the drugs are being bought with my own money. So that is very important. So the problem with the mineral sector, look at emeralds. We produce a lot of emeralds. There was one report which was brought to my attention many years ago by the late Chief Mpande when he was a lecturer at the university, that we are probably the second largest producer of high quality emeralds in the world after Colombia. But what have we gained from emeralds? Very little. Even the marketing, previously it was just being done under the table. It took some time to have open auctions. But even with those, there are still a lot of people who are not taking the stuff.
So with your experience, even at the central bank, you're sitting also on the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, there's this general problem in Africa. I mean, Zimbabwe has got gold, Zambia has got these emeralds. Previously, there were plans that when companies, the mining companies, the foreign ones, are posting what they're earning, it must pass through the central bank. There's been talk that it should be served in local banks. What for you is the best international practice for how we should get value for our natural resource?
Okay, the best way of getting value, first of all, get the industry organized, as I've been saying, so that we know exactly who is supposed to be operating, rather than getting these chaps who are digging out the minerals at night. Sugarite. I never even knew that there was sugarite. I don't even know. I've never even seen it. But apparently it's a precious metal. And all this kind of lithium is very important for the new economy, the EV vehicles and so forth. We need to have it properly organized, not to just hear that people are going at night to Kalomo or whatever places and so forth. Let them mine it properly in a regulated manner, let them be licensed, and let them pay their obligations to ZRA. And we will transfer the money to the government to spend. That is very important. But secondly, also, you can add value. Gold, in a raw form, it's not good. But if you can process it so that you produce the gold bars, which are of a certain level of purity, you'll be able to get more money. And whoever does that will benefit a lot. You know, even things like we hear now of marijuana. I can tell you, if I compare Zambia and Zimbabwe, which I'm familiar with, in Zimbabwe, when they said, okay, marijuana can be produced, the government established a refinery where you can extract the marijuana oil, whatever it is. I think that's the final. Yeah, then that's what it has got an international market. Here, where is it? We are just trying to designate who will be producing marijuana. In Zimbabwe, everybody who is interested, they go and get a license, they produce, and then they take it to the government-owned processing plant to extract the oil, and they export that to the outside world. I've even got a friend who was telling me in December when I visited his farm in Marondera, that we got good money from the export of marijuana. But here, where is the processing plant?
But back to the question I asked you earlier. I mean, with your experience sitting from the tax collection point, that has been a problem in how to rightfully tax the mines. When they've produced, there's been a discrepancy in terms of how much are they selling at versus the cost of production, and what the Bank of Zambia is posting as receipts in terms of how have they sold. So again, I'll ask you this. Why do we find these discrepancies that the tax person at ZRI does not know really the right taxes? Bank of Zambia does not know really how much these guys pushed out and how much. It's like we're told they only bring back money for salaries and buying equipment.
Yeah, but even if they brought money just for that, you should be able to know how much they've earned. The market for copper is international. Okay, you can know copper sold on this day was going at this price and so forth and so on. You can be able to calculate how much is each mine exported and at what price it was sold, and be able to calculate their tax liabilities from there. What probably we need to do now is to invest. I think tomorrow there is a big conference starting which is hosted by ZRI at Mlongoshi International Conference Center, which will be looking at this taxation of minerals and so forth, to share knowledge among its countries. Obviously, there are a lot of mining countries in the world, and they've benefited from their mineral wealth. Why shouldn't we be benefiting from our mineral wealth? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Is it that we deliberately fail to give value even when we can be able to calculate the real value of what we are producing and so forth? Now, as we move into new minerals, emeralds, sugarite, whatever, lithium, the same principles must prevail. We must know. I can't understand why it is only Zambia which is failing. I know that a lot of mining companies do face a lot of challenges because the mining countries face these challenges mainly because the mining companies have got the capacity to do tax planning. Okay, one of the areas they beat us on is the fact that procurement of equipment. You are trying to buy some sophisticated equipment from abroad. The procurement is being done by the head office in London or in Ottawa or wherever. We don't even know the real value. If they give you that, it costs double. And you are giving duty-free importation of equipment because it's capital equipment. But now you are giving for double the value.
And you have to pay them VAT returns.
So those are the issues. But again, with international cooperation, there is no reason why we cannot be able to give a true value to a Caterpillar equipment which has been bought in anywhere, the US or Canada, and be able to, if somebody comes and says, no, this equipment I've bought cost me 2 million, when the real price is 1 million, we should have somebody who can say, no, this is not the true price. And I think that increasingly, especially with electronic infrastructure that is developing, it is possible to share on a global basis the real value of these things. Even you on a personal basis, if you want to know how much a Mercedes-Benz car costs, I'm sure you can find out.
As we come to a conclusion, back to the debt restructuring issues and deals, earlier on there were concerns by stakeholders like the IMF and other bilateral lenders calling on China to come to the table. You've heard obviously concerns around whether our relationship with China was solid, but we owe China $4.1 billion dollars. What does this agreement mean vis-a-vis China's participation in this whole affair?
Well, China lent us money, and I must say that sometimes China is blamed for the wrong reasons. At one stage, China was the only country that could lend us money to build things like airports. We need good airports in order to attract tourists, and tourism can be a big money earner, can create a lot of jobs. If there is one sector which produces a lot of jobs, it's tourism, hotels and so forth. China, as you know, has financed Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, Kapwepo Airport. These are modern airports by any standards. And where could we have gotten that money in these times? Even Livingstone Airport is modernized thanks to countries like China. So let's not blame China for everything. Let's blame ourselves. If there were problems, some people say that some of these projects were overpriced. Okay? Again, we get back to the same issue. Who determines the value of something? Why is it not our people who are accepting a price which was not right? So corruption is another issue the government is trying to address, because they have heard and they've seen that some projects, although good, probably could have been acquired at a much lower price. You saw, for instance, the dual carriageway, Lusaka to Ndola. What was being quoted as the price for that last time? And when the new government came, how much are we going to pay for that? So let's put the blame on ourselves. If we are, through corruption, accepted to get overpriced infrastructure projects, we should blame ourselves. We should know where the blame lies, not to China. China just provides help, and help which is not freely available from other countries at this time. But you need infrastructure to get the tourists here. I've been to some countries which I thought had money, and the airport I was using, I even said, now, what do they do with the money if this is the airport facility? So those impressions are very important, even for repeat tourists and so forth. So China should not be seen as the same countries. You know, China today is not only dealing with us, it's dealing with everybody. Do you know where your iPads are made? They're made in China. Most of the things that you get, the West now, the Western countries, the OECD countries are benefiting a lot from China because China is able to supply them with cheaper goods, which if they produce on their own will be very expensive. They are able to reduce the cost of employing people.
So going forward, our relationship with China must be strengthened.
It must be strengthened, but for us to benefit, we must be smart enough to ask what is good from China, to negotiate a price which is good. It's like any relationship. If I'm trading with you and I'm not smart, you can tell me this thing will cost you 100,000 kwacha, and if I can't read through, I pay you. Are you going to? Who are you going to blame for that? You must blame me for agreeing to pay for 100,000 kwacha for something which is not worth that much.
Doc, finally, we've hit this milestone. Kudos, to the president and the negotiating team. The interesting question for a Zambian watching tonight: how will this benefit me at domestic household level? Do I see a reduction in the cost of living? Do I see what will be the significant benefits to an ordinary citizen on the street?
Okay, I think for the ordinary citizen, the fact that probably our foreign exchange situation will improve would mean the kwacha becoming a bit stronger, and it could immediately translate into lower cost of goods, since we import a lot of the major things you find in your supermarkets are imported. With the stronger kwacha, although I must emphasize that sometimes prices are more flexible upwards than downwards, okay? But again, I think the pitch we should be putting up now is to appeal to all these importers that now, if the kwacha gets stronger, let's see it being translated into consumer goods. That's one, as an individual. Two, as I was saying earlier, if you are involved in some form of production, it's possible to acquire capital goods now at a much lower cost, or even if it's the same cost, at least the dollar will be more readily available. You can import things and improve your production by enhancing productivity through acquisition of capital equipment. That will bring you more wealth, but it will also benefit everybody around. If production can be ramped up, there will be jobs for your children and for your...
Do we see investor confidence rising?
Yes, we will see it. Certainly, there is no question about it. If you are dealing in a country which is not heavily indebted, which doesn't have payments problems, if you want to import something, you can easily access foreign exchange. If you have earned a profit, you can be able to externalize your dividend. That's what attracts foreign investors. Even from the government's financing point of view, if the government wants to finance its budget, I'm sure you read recently that the portfolio investors, those who come to buy the bonds, had stopped coming here. Now, if they start coming, that's a good thing. And it will also mean that even the yield rates will moderate, come down, and the cost of government borrowing from that source of financing will be lower, and it makes it easier for us to access government financing at a lower cost. So there are a lot of positives that you can see in this. Obviously, Zambia was being watched, being the first country to go under this G20 framework. Everybody has been watching what happened, and I'm sure even internationally there will be a lot of countries which will be looking at us and copying, because we are providing the template for debt resolution under the G20 in the post-HIPC era. So this, what we've done is very important, and if we do it well, it will help a lot of other countries.
Dr. Caleb Fundanga, thank you so much for talking to me on this important subject where Zambia reached a milestone on reaching a debt restructuring agreement.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Costa.
That wraps up this week's edition of Costa. My guest, Dr. Caleb Fundanga. We've been discussing Zambia reaching its debt restructuring agreement, obviously with international creditors, $6.3 billion, and obviously that 20-year, period in which to pay with a 3-year grace period. Remember, you can catch this live on our stream. It's Facebook at Diamond TV Zambia, also on our YouTube page. It's Diamond TV 271 and GoTV channel 20. Thank you so much and good night.
Costa was brought to you by FQM Trident Limited, a subsidiary of First Quantum Minerals Limited.
This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
The Information and Communications University is driving the thrill for the nation in research and development. Enroll now for full-time and distance programs in the School of Engineering, Humanities, Business and Education. To apply, visit our website at www.icuzambia.net or call us on +260 211 221 662 or 0966 342 359. Sponsorship is available. Enroll now.
There is nothing quite like the thrill of catching your own fish. And at Papino Investments, we bring that experience to you. Papino Investments, the home of live fish, has everything you need to make your meals unforgettable.
It has a different taste, and that is why I enjoy coming to this place.
From live fish that you can catch for yourself to smoked fish, just chickens and beef, we have a wide range of products that will satisfy your shopping needs. And if you're looking for something else, we have a wide range of groceries to choose from, including Hope Channel decorders. At Papino Investments, payment is easy. You can pay with cash or use our mobile money services. Visit us today at Roberts